All right. So, you know what, you guys, you came here today to learn about establishing habits in your life that actually stick. And so, I'm going to share exactly how I do that in the three-step system that I use to actually make habits stick in my life. And I'm going to share those with you. But before we get into that, I really want to start building a foundation or laying a foundation for us to build on later in today's training. Okay. So, this is something that's going to have a lot of meat to it and a lot of action. So you can go back and rewatch it. Don't feel like, oh my gosh, there's so much information or there's so much to process and get overwhelmed with it because it's not going to serve you. And that's why I'm making sure the replay is available for you all the time in the guide section. So don't be overwhelmed with the idea that you have to like process all this right now. But this is new information, and anything new takes time and it's uncomfortable at times. And we're going to talk about that. So, a lot of you are here though because you're like, hey, I know I need to establish some healthy habits in my life, or I've tried establishing healthy habits in my life, or just habits in general that I want to establish, and I have not been able to establish those. Maybe you started to do something for a couple days or even a couple weeks, and you couldn't really make that habit stick, and you really want to find out what you're missing. So, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And the thing about creating habits is that it's change. And here's the problem with change. Change is hard. It is. It looks like work. It's not anything that we really want to do. It's uncomfortable. Okay. And it's definitely not something that most of us go into jumping and shouting praises about. Like, change is uncomfortable, and most people try to avoid change like the plague. And honestly, I just want to give you a little mindset shift here. If there's one thing I've learned in my life, just one thing, is that the only thing that will ever stay the same is that change will always come. So change is going to come whether we like it or not, right? The days go by, the months go by, the years go by, things change, people change, circumstances change, life changes. So just like stop resisting change and stop fighting change and start to go with the flow of change in your life. And things will be a little bit easier for you. But most of us don't change because it's hard and it looks like work. But you know what else is hard? Staying the same. Okay. So is staying the same. And when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, that's when you're going to actually change. Okay. That's when it pushes us into the change, ready to change zone, and we start doing things. So, what we typically do though, when we're like, I need to make a change, this is what I'm going to do. We typically start to rely on willpower to change instead of being empowered to transform by the power of the Holy Spirit within us. We rely on ourselves to do it instead of asking God to partner with us in creating those new healthy habits that are going to help prosper our life. We think we can do it all within our own strength. And honestly, we're going to talk about this a little bit more too later. But honestly, the problem lies in, I would need to make a change. You make this decision, you're like, I know it's going to be hard, or you don't maybe know it's going to be hard, okay? But you decide, I think it's not going to be that easy, right? And then you decide, I'm going to make a change. And you start going towards that change. And what happens? Failure, right? Because you did not come up with a plan. And we're going to talk about how to come up with a plan and not just throw something out into the universe and hope that it happens, right? Not just wish and desire, and not just say, well, I want to lose 20 pounds and then that's it. Like, okay, great. You know what you want, but there's no plan in place to create those habits that you need to sustain and the transformation that you need for those to become just part of your identity. So when we're relying on our own willpower gets up and like leaves us so fast. It's like, hey, actually, this is too hard. Peace out. See you later. Like, I'm not sticking around for this. Willpower like runs out the door the minute things get hard. That's why we can't rely on willpower, because who is will anyway? And he does not have very much power. Okay. We think that we can do it ourselves, but we can't. Okay. Romans 7:18-19 says, I know that good doesn't live within me. Ouch, right? Oh, that is in my body, right? He's talking about in my body. The desire to do good is inside me, but I can't do it. This is Paul talking. I don't do the good that I want to do, but I do the evil that I don't want to do. We can't do this within ourselves. We need to rely on God. So even Paul says, I don't do what I need to do and I do the things that I don't need to do. Like, how familiar is this? Let me know in the chat. Like, this sounds like me. I'm struggling. I know what I should be doing, or I know the best choices for me, but I just won't make them or choose not to make them. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to talk to you about two different ways of living. This is the problem that Paul is facing and that we face too. There's a fight between the flesh and the spirit constantly, okay? And when we're constantly at conflict, it's difficult to actually get on the same page, right? The flesh and the spirit can't get on the same page, and they won't. So that's why we walk by the Spirit. That's why we're filled by the Holy Spirit. That's why the Holy Spirit empowers us to do the things that we can't do. We can't do it on our own. Like, no way, Jose. So we need to really rely on the power that's within us. The same power that raised Christ from the dead lives in you. Okay. It lives in you. But when we're feeding the flesh, or it just depends, I guess. If we're feeding the flesh or we're feeding the spirit, okay, those are two different ways to live. Either you're feeding your flesh or you're feeding your spirit. So what you feed grows, and what you starve will die. Think about that. What you feed continues to grow. What you starve will die. So if you have a plant, and like my plant back there, his name is Lance. Say hi to Lance, everybody. Hi, Lance. If you have a plant and you decide you're going to fertilize it, give it water and sun, that's feeding it. It's going to do what? Grow. Okay. If you decide to keep it in a closet, keep it far from the sun, never give it water, never give it any kind of nutrients at all, what's going to happen? It will starve and die. So the same is true of our health mentally and physically. So what you feed, if you feed a sugar addiction, for instance, it's going to continue to be worse. You're going to continue to crave sugar. You're going to be like, why is this such an issue for me? But if you start to starve that, at first it's going to fight. At first it's like, no, I need this to live. And it's going to fight you, right? That desire for sugar. But when you starve it long enough, you eventually, it dies. Like, it won't continue to grow. But as you continue to shove junk food into your mouth, the desire for junk food grows. So where you steer in your car, literally, where you stare, I mean, in your car, your car will steer. Sorry, I didn't say that correctly, but where you stare, you steer. Okay. It's hard to say. So if you're looking off to your left, for instance, your car is going to go off to the left. You got to think about where you're looking, because where you're focused is important. Okay. And so the same is true. And Galatians 5:16-17 says, I say, be guided by the Spirit, and you won't carry out your selfish desires. Ooh, ouch, man. Be guided by the Spirit, and you won't even carry out those fleshly, selfish desires. And then it goes on to say, a person's selfish desires are set against the Spirit, and the Spirit is set against one's selfish desires. So you see, they're at war, according to the word. They are opposite to each other. So you shouldn't do whatever you want to do. And that's Galatians 5:6-17. So write that down, study that verse, get it in your heart. Romans 7:18-19 is the one I just read a few minutes ago. But that's really just hitting home. Like, it is what it is. So we need to practice walking by the Spirit daily and exchange our natural power for God's power. Okay. As in Isaiah 40:31, where he says, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will fly on wings like eagles. They will run and not be tired. They will walk and not grow weary. So when we are relying and waiting and hoping in the Lord, what happens? We renew our strength. We can do this. But when we're hoping and relying on the world systems and what we think we can do and our own strength, it's going to fail us every time. And that's what most people call willpower. Like, I got this, I can do it. Well, you can do all things through Christ if he is the center of what you're doing. Okay. So here's this cycle of failure. This is the cycle of failure, ladies. I know nobody wants to talk about this, but this is why you're here. Cause you're like, yeah, I'm probably struggling in this area. So what we do is we attempt to change. We are like, I know we need to change. Hold on. I'm going to mute, silent. There we go. I muted you. All right. Sorry. So what we do when we attempt to change, okay, we know what we need to do. Okay. We know we're like, I know I shouldn't be eating those cookies, but actually not eating the cookies is tough. I know I should be praying, but actually getting up with the, alarm in the morning is tough. And, or going to bed early. That's probably the toughest part. It's not even getting up, it's going to bed early. So we know what we should do, but we don't do it. Just like Paul says in Romans 7:18-19, where he says, I I don't do what I should do or what I know is right, but I do what I don't want to do. So it's not just you, it's human nature. So, since nothing's worked, long term or maybe not at all, our attempt to change just leaves us feeling like a failure and really even probably embarrassed that we haven't achieved our goal. And so, we get frustrated and we're like, "Man, I didn't do it again. I told everybody I was going to do it and I still didn't do it." And so then maybe you stop trying, right? You're just like, "Never mind." Because here's the truth. When you try to change, like I said earlier, change is hard, but so is staying the same. It is. So don't be beating yourself up when you don't succeed, because how many of you succeeded the first time you got on a bicycle and started just taking off down the road? Like nobody. But several of us fell. How many started just getting up and walking? Like, no, you fell a bunch of times. You had to learn. Change is hard. Crawling and being carried was easy. If you wanted to get somewhere faster, though, you had to learn a new skill, and that was walking, right? But you didn't do it quickly and you didn't do it perfectly. You just did it. And so I want to share something with you. There's a statistic that says nearly 86% of New Year's resolutions fail before February 1st. That's really discouraging, right? It's disheartening. I want to ask you a question. You can type this out in the chat. You can leave it in the comments in the Facebook group. But how many of you would say that you don't even set New Year's resolutions anymore or beginning of the year goals because you've just seen them fail over and over again? And you think, why bother? Why bother? If that's you, let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments because you're not alone. I can't tell you how many times I have dreaded the idea of setting New Year's resolutions because probably not going to work out anyway. Like I already have been defeated in my mind before I even started, right? Like I see some of you over there like me, it's me. I do the same thing. Okay, I understand. But listen, I want to encourage you with something before you get into today and you're like, this is probably not going to help me. Listen, this is going to transform your life in the way of creating healthy habits. And Isaiah 43:18-19 says, forget the former things. Oh, snap. Forget what you did before or what you didn't do. Forget it. God says, forget it. Isaiah 43, Isaiah is talking about this. He says, forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. I could just like mic drop right now, but I need my mic. It's on the stand, so I won't. Okay. So this is continuing the verse. See, I am doing a new thing. I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness. Whoa. And streams in the wasteland. I love that verse. Forget the former things. Don't dwell on the past. I am doing a new thing. That's what God is saying to you today. So let all that stuff that happened in the past stay in the past. It's okay if you failed. Hey, that's fine. You did it. You tried at least, right? Like you tried something and you learned what didn't work. So now you can move forward, right? Now it's time to live empowered and to make the necessary changes in your life, coupled and partnered with the Holy Spirit. You can do it. It's not impossible if you walk in faith and patience. And Hebrews 6, 11 and 12 tells us that. It talks about walking in faith and patience. So God's about to do a new thing in you in 2024. And I really want you to start to let the walls come down, let those barriers be removed in your life where you're like, I don't know, I've tried, I've failed, it's been painful, it's not worked before. Remember the scripture I just read to you? Forget that. Forget it all. Okay. I am doing a new thing. If you don't get nothing else out of this class today, write that down. Okay. It's Isaiah 43:18-19. All right. So the old season is gone. Forget all that. Isaiah 43. All right. So let's go into step one of actually establishing healthy habits. And we kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but this is interactive. So I really want you to have a pen and paper with you so you can start to jot down as the Lord brings things to your mind as we're talking about this. I'm going to ask you some questions throughout this as well. So be ready to answer some of these questions for yourself so you can get going on this. It's really important. But the first step in establishing your healthy habit is actually defining your why. Okay, you have to look at why you're doing what it is you want to do. Now, first you need to know what, if you have a goal or if you want what a habit you need to establish and all of that. But once you know where you're going, You have to have a plan in place to do it. And so that begins by, before the plan comes, you have to have a big why, because even if you have a plan, I can have a plan to eat salad for the next week and somebody brings brownies and puts them in my face. That plan is out the window. One, it wasn't a very good plan. And two, I didn't have a big reason why. I didn't probably have any reason why other than I want to lose X amount of pounds. But if you have a really big reason why, and you can see the end, the finish line, then you're going to be able to, it'll be way more likely that you'll be able to say no to the pan of brownies when somebody brings it, to the potluck or to your office or to your birthday party or wherever. And I'm not saying that brownies is necessarily something you have to say no to. I'm just saying if you have a goal, there are things that, like that there are things that you can say no to or should say no to so that you can achieve your goal and not feed the things that grow that you don't want to continue to grow in your life. But if you don't know where you're going, you're already there. So you need to have some place that you're going, and then you need to define your big reason why. So let's get into that. I want to ask you, and you can write this down. You can chat with me in the chat or put it in the comments or just jot it down in your notebook that you have near you. But I want you to start to think about this question. Where do you see yourself if nothing changes in the next 5 years? If you do not do anything different than you're doing right now, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Just take a minute, jot that down, type it out in the chat, whatever you want to do. And then I want you to think about and answer this question. Where can you see yourself if you develop and you do the new healthy habits in your wellness journey in the next 5 years? So where could you be if you decide, yeah, I'm gonna do these things that I set out to do? Where can you see yourself the next 5 years? So if you want to change something in your life, you have to change something in your life. You just have to. It doesn't just happen to you. Change doesn't just happen to you mostly. Like if you want to see change, there are things that just change, like the seasons, our skin, things like hair and gray hairs. Like there are things that we can't control, right? But if you really want to change where you're at, you don't like it, whether it's your finances, your health, your mental health, your emotional wellness, you're going to have to do something differently. It's going to require a different action. And change is a verb. That means it's an action, right? It's an action word that requires you doing something different to get different results. And I go through this process of change because change is a difficult thing for us to grasp. There is a process of change that we go through in our minds before we actually can start to establish something new in our life. And this is something that people don't teach you in school, and I wish that they did. But the process of change is something that I go into in great detail and teach you that in the biblical body plan course that you can get online right now. It's a self-paced course. You can start going through that at any time. It's available, but I go through that because it's super important to understand, where are you in the process of change? Where are you now? And then how do you get to the next step? Whether it'll help you to determine where you actually are in the process of change. So how do we know what we need to change and how? So I'm going to get into the how a little bit later. Now I just want to help you define your why and help you to start to picture your finish line. Okay, so how do you define what needs to change in your life? You want you to just look at your current habits right now. Think about this with me, your thoughts, your physical habits, your daily routines. Just think about those. Just for a minute, go ahead. Are these things that you're doing or the ways that you're thinking, are they serving you well to move toward your goal? Because the goal is, I want to lose 20 pounds. Now, I'm not saying we're only talking about physical health here. I'm just saying it's the easiest thing for us to relate to. But if your goal is that I want to have a better thought life, I want to stop talking bad to myself and beating myself up. I want to have a more fulfilling prayer life or relationship with the Lord. I want to have better finances. Whatever it is, your end goal, okay, you have to still look at what habits you need to establish to get there, because it's the doing that gets you there. But you have to start, with the goal, right? And then looking at, what do I need to start doing? Okay. So what habits do you have right now that aren't serving you well in moving towards your goal? Like, are you sleeping in too late? Are you snacking at night? Are you emotionally eating? Are you grazing and snacking on M&Ms all day? Are you not drinking water? Or maybe you're drinking too little of water. Are you scrolling on social media into the night and losing sleep, or waking up first thing in the morning and grabbing your phone and scrolling social media? Are those things hindering your progress? So I want you to write down anything that comes to mind right now. Just go ahead and do that. And don't get overwhelmed with this, because you don't have to change everything at once. If you're like, oh, there's a lot of stuff that I need to change, right? We're going to get to that soon, but just jot down anything that comes to your mind, and you can go back and add more to this later. And don't feel overwhelmed by like, oh, now I have 15 things. Like, no. But I want to give you a little pro tip here. Invite the Holy Spirit to help you with defining what needs to change in your life, because He will. Just ask Him. He's so faithful. He is so faithful to show you what it is that you need to release, submit to Him, and say, I shouldn't be doing this because it's not helpful for me at all. It's not healthy. It's not helping me propel me forward towards my kingdom purpose in this world. And I need to release that. And that's a difficult thing to do when, we're constantly living full pedal to the metal, doing what we've always done because it's the habits that we have to do them. And it's difficult to change those things at times. And so asking the Holy Spirit to help you define what needs to change is so important. And I shared on my podcast this morning, you can go back and listen to that, about something that God showed me about a bad habit that I have. And this crazy thing I did yesterday by going outside and breaking up ice in my driveway. And literally, like, my hands today are still hurting like crazy bad because of a dumb thing that I did yesterday that I didn't even need to do. And had I waited on the Lord, had I waited on the sun to melt the ice, I could have gotten out not 2 hours later, but I spent the 2 hours like jackhammering basically my driveway. And now my hands hurt, all day today. And I'm like, man, this is awful. And, just really my thumbs, to be honest, because the way I was holding what I was holding. But anyways, and that's the bad habit that I have, is that I'm impatient and I don't wait on the Lord. And what happens when we don't wait on the Lord? It causes us pain, stress. We lose sleep. We can actually miss out on our blessing. We can miss out on the blessing that we were supposed to be to somebody else when we don't wait on the Lord. And so it's really important to wait on His timing. And I'm not very good at doing that. And so I was just telling God yesterday, like, oh, I just had this revelation as I was making a cup of coffee in the afternoon, way after this had happened. And I was like, I said, God, I'm so impatient. I am so impatient. And it's like I could almost hear Him saying, like, you said it, not me. Like, yep, since you said it, have you ever been around somebody that you're like, ooh, and they say something about themselves and you're like, man, I've been wanting to say that for 3 years, but I'm glad you said it. Of course, you didn't say that, but you might have thought it. That's what I'm sure God thinks about me sometimes. So we have to have, we don't have to, but in order to decide what we need to change, we should invite the Holy Spirit to help us. He will show us. And He showed me yesterday, look, you've been doing this. You've been doing this a lot. And He uses real life, situations like what I did in the driveway yesterday to show me what my bad habits are, whether they're thought habits or physical habits, food habits, whatever thing it is. He uses real life things to teach me. And I love that. And so I want to give you this little mindset shift to encourage you as you're making this list of habit changes and you're looking at the reason why you want to do this. Don't be afraid of what you're going to be giving up to get what you want. Don't be afraid of that. Okay. Really start to think about what you're going to be getting and gaining instead of what you're going to lose out on by creating these new habits and throwing those old ones away because they're not serving you anymore. So have expectations to win the prize, like to get to the end. Okay. The Bible tells us that we should be running to win. Now, I'm not a runner physically, but I do run my race spiritually. I do run my race as a human being. We all do. Okay. So 1 Corinthians 9:24 tells us about that. Paul talks about running our race with endurance and running to win. And so in order to win, we have to have a finish line. We can't just be running around forever and not know where we're going. You can't do what you don't define. So you have to define your finish line. You got to have an end in mind. You got to know where you're going and make your reason why you're going there really, really important and write it down. Okay. So you have to have a vision. Okay. Make it plain because the Bible even says where there's no vision, the people will perish. So you're not doing this for no reason. Like, this isn't just something fun you decided to do one day. You're not making all these changes because it's fun, right? It's not, because we already addressed that. It's not fun. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. Nobody likes it. Change isn't fun. But it takes intentionality and it does get easier. It's not easy at first, but it gets easier. And this is where discipline comes in as you keep that prize in front of you, as you keep the end in mind, your big why. And even Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9:27, he had to discipline his body. So there's a really big importance in setting clear, achievable goals. But I think we struggle with the word discipline more than the word change because a lot of us like think discipline means I'm going to get slapped around or something, like I'm going to be grounded, whatever happens when you were a kid, we think I'm going to be disciplined, right? But discipline is a good thing. God says he disciplines, his children and you're illegitimate if you're not being disciplined. So discipline is important. But this is why it's so important to have a really big reason why you're doing what you're doing to implement those new habits. It has to be clear in your mind where you're going and it has to be worth it to you. Because if it's something that you just threw out there and sort of kind of might want to possibly someday maybe lose 20 pounds, maybe get out of debt, maybe spend more time in prayer or whatever it is, you're going to quit when it gets uncomfortable and tough. You're gonna. And you're gonna go back to what you knew, which is the unhealthy weight, the anger, the lack of money, the confusion, whatever, whatever sort of lifestyle it was, you're gonna go back to it because it will eventually start to not look so bad. You'll be like, oh, maybe this is too uncomfortable. Maybe what I was dealing with over here really wasn't so bad after all. Because suddenly the pain of change became greater than the pain of staying the same. So we swapped it in our mind, or at least we think it is for the moment. Like, it's not comfortable to stay in debt, but because it's uncomfortable to say no to buying that awesome new purse and shoes and going out to eat all the time, that's uncomfortable. So we think, well, maybe it's not really that bad, but it is, because then like next week when you don't have enough money to pay whatever it is, or you don't have enough money to go do the extra thing, then you're thinking, man, like, so do you see how this works? Are y'all like following me? So when we go back to our comfort zones, even when it gets hard, when we go back to our comfort zones, it is really keeping us in an unhealthy cycle. And this is why we have to have our finish line in front of us and really be focused on where it is we want to go. Okay. Athletes train, they don't just try. So this is really important concept that I want you to understand. So there's a difference between desire and discipline. Desire is literally, like, the definition of it is a strong feeling of wanting to have something or wishing that it would happen. Feelings don't make nothing happen. Wishing doesn't make anything happen. How many stars have you wished on in your life as you were a little girl? Did you ever do that? I did many times. They didn't come true. Wishing doesn't make things happen. Discipline does. Discipline is actually doing the thing over and over. It's training to do what it is. It's not trying. I'm not just trying to lose 20 pounds. It's no, there is no try. There's only do. I think that's Mr. Miyagi maybe, or some Star Wars person. I don't know. But but training is really important to develop yourself in self-control. Okay. The Bible talks about developing yourself and having self-control. God knew that it would be tough though, ladies, and he knew that it wouldn't be easy. So Galatians 6:9 tells us when it's hard, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. So remember that about everything you set out to do that is going to improve your life and the lives of those around you. It's a good work. But don't grow weary, don't get tired or discouraged. Another translation says don't get discouraged in doing good. Okay? Keep going. Keep sowing. Keep moving forward, one little tiny step at a time. So I want to give you a little call to action right now. I want you to take a minute and think about this. I want you to get a vision for where you want to go. I want you to write it down in as much detail as you possibly can. Visualization is super important. Our imagination is there for a reason. So we need to visualize where we want to go. Most of us visualize enough of the bad things that could happen in life. If we'll turn that around and start to visualize the good things we want to see happening in our lives, it will empower us for sure. So visualize where you want to go. And the Biblical Body Plan course helps with this a ton. Also, I walk you through specific steps to take to open and unlock that part of your mind where you're like, I can't really envision myself as a healthy person. I can't really envision what it looks like to have enough money. I don't know how to do that. Well, I walk you through how to do that in the biblical body plan, but I want you to write down your end goal, like whatever that is, and then start to work backwards from there, identifying the habits that you need to start and the ones you need to stop, and then write those down. But once you're done with that, you just choose 1 to 3 habits to work on at a time so that you don't get overwhelmed. Because you don't want to just start doing a full life overhaul. It doesn't work. That's why we fail. That's why change and establishing habits is such a hard thing because we think, I'm just going to suddenly be somebody new tomorrow by doing something new. And that's not how it works. And so that's why we fail because it doesn't stick around. That was talking about the why. Now I want to talk about the how. Okay. This is step number 2, defining the plan. Okay. We're going to get the plan. And so I want to introduce to you this concept of the 1% method and the anchor method. And we're going to talk about the 1% method because this is how we start to actually create and establish the habits that we want to see, coming to fruition in our lives. So instead of changing everything all at one time, what if we just started small, tiny changes in our life? Because those small changes end up compounding over time to give you big results. And this could be in the positive or the negative. This could be where you're like, okay, like all of a sudden, I don't know how I gained all this weight. Well, it didn't happen suddenly. It just happened in small, tiny increments of change. And you didn't notice it because it was so small. The same is true of how did I lose this 10 pounds? I just talked to a woman yesterday that's in the Biblical Body Plan group coaching, which is closed right now. The Biblical Body Plan course itself is open for purchase at any time, but the coaching is not right now. But she's in my program and she's like, Catherine, I lost 10 pounds in the last 2 weeks and I don't even know how. And I was like, well, what have you done differently? She's like, I don't know. I just started cutting back on my portion sizes a little bit. It's like, see, thank you, Christy. I saw your comment. It was Yoda, do or do not. Yes, thank you. But anyways, okay, squirrel moment over there. But the 1% method is looking at things like that, where she's like, I really didn't do anything different. I just started like cutting back on my portions a little bit and 10 pounds in 2 weeks. I'm like, well, that's a lot of weight to lose in 2 weeks. So that's awesome. I'm so proud of her. But that's the point. Okay. So it's really important that we don't get overwhelmed with trying to do everything at once so that we can actually succeed. And that's the reason why New Year's resolutions fail so many times is because we're trying to do too much too fast. It's like juggling 6 balls when you haven't even learned how to juggle one. And so it's kind of the same concept. We have to learn to master one before we can throw in another and another and another. So instead of trying to do it all at once, start small, really small, with a few changes, just a few. And then once you feel like you're good, you got a good groove going, then you can add in another thing or maybe 2. So I wouldn't try to change more than 3 habits in your life at one time. And it's really important. We'll talk about that later. It's really important to be mindful that you're not trying to do too much because even one habit change can actually trigger other things that have to change. So if you, for instance, want to get up early in the morning and have breakfast, if you're like, I really want to be a breakfast eater because I've heard it's really important. I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm just saying. So what happens? The new habit is I want to get up early, but you also have to establish a new habit of going to bed early. So that means you may have to also establish the habit of a better nighttime routine. That's 3 right there. So really think about, okay, I want to get up early and do fill in the blank. That's not the only thing that you're going to be changing. You're going to actually be changing other things too. So think through those things. Think through what is this actually going to entail? Be a detail-oriented person in this process because it's going to serve you so well. It's going to serve you so well so that you don't overwhelm yourself. And then once you're like, hey, I think I'm good. I've established this. I feel good about it. Then you can move on to doing something new. So small changes over an extended period of time equal huge results. And so, for example, you could start to do something like healthy food swaps, like dropping soda and drinking seltzer water instead, skipping the drive-through an extra time each week, saying no to Starbucks sugary coffees. I know who wants to say no to that, right? But saying no to those. If you want to go to Starbucks, just get a black coffee. And you probably won't wanna go to Starbucks anymore, but 'cause I don't like their coffee, but it's gross. But, I mean, hey, just think about that. That's saving you an extra 500 calories a week if you go once a week. That's great. That small change could actually help you drop 5 pounds pretty quick. Maybe you could swap out, like I said, soda for seltzer water or sweet tea for stevia sweetened tea or whatever it is. Those little tiny food swaps will help you over time to feel healthier, be healthier, and actually lose some weight. And there's neuroscience behind habit formations, and they don't teach this in school either. And the effectiveness of small, sustainable changes. Neuroscience has actually taught us that making gigantic changes in our routine is not effective. Our brains are wired to link two experiences together that happen repeatedly. We're just wired that way. So, like, for instance, you wake up and you have coffee, linked. Okay, that's just what you go to the bathroom, you grab your phone. Oh, how many of us are that person? Like, we link that, right? We link these 2 things together. Our brains are wired to do that. So now my brain, let me just be honest, I am the bathroom phone person. I'm like, "I'm going to the bathroom. I will go look for my phone if I have to pee on myself." It's so bad, okay? I'm like, "I gotta go grab my phone." It's a habit. I don't need my phone. What do I need my phone in there? That's gross. Why are you bringing it in there? People are like, "Ooh, you bring your phone." You bring your phone in there too, like everybody does. But I'm just saying, like, think about that. My brain has wired a new habit where I told my husband this the other day. I was like, I am so tired of feeling tethered to my phone because I work from my phone. I'm tired of being tethered to my phone. It gets on my last nerve. I did not used to be this way. What happened? He's like, yeah, I know. I don't. I don't know. I remember when I married you, you were like anti-phone girl. I was like, I know. And then suddenly, here I am addicted to my phone. Why? It's because my brain has linked things together. I go to the bathroom and bring my phone. I sit on the couch to have coffee. I bring my phone. Like, so it's wired. So I've created this habit, which is ultimately an addiction and it's not good. So if you're planning to change everything at once, though, your brain's not wired to do that. It's near impossible to restructure your brain according to your new behaviors if you're trying to do too much at once. But even though we know this doesn't work based on experience, maybe you didn't know that about neuroscience, we still go into the new year determined that we're going to change everything in our life starting tomorrow. Like starting January 3rd or whatever Monday is, okay? We do this because the idea that everything can change in a single day is extremely satisfying. We love that idea that, yeah, I'm just going to be a supermodel by tomorrow. Like, but that's not realistic, right? And it's not. But no one likes delayed gratification or the prospect of having to do something that's hard or looks like work, or if something could have to take a ton of time. And I remember asking the Lord one day while I was driving, why? I was like crying and whining, not literally crying, but just whining to him. And I was like, God, why isn't this different yet? Like, hasn't this thing changed? And I clearly heard him in my spirit say to me, you want the change to come, but you don't want to do anything to change for that change to come. I was like, man, oh God, you're right. You want the change, but you don't want to have to do anything to change. Ouch. So it's really, really, really the cold, hard truth. I don't like it. It's not fun, but it is what it is. Okay. It really is. So the result that we end up falling into, though, because we're like, I'm going to change my whole life overnight just because we have this desire, like we talked about, to do that. We want a whole new life or a whole new body or whatever, but it doesn't work. The result is that we fall into this pattern of all or nothing thinking. And that approach leads us to overwhelm, which leads us to giving up, going back to doing nothing at all, since we can't do it all. Okay. So, what if instead of trying to change everything all at once, we focused on making small changes every day? Instead of going to the gym for an hour, 4 or 5 times a week, and cutting your calorie intake drastically and, you know, just, kicking your butt, why don't you just try exercising for 10 minutes a day and cutting down on sugary drinks? Wow, that seems a lot more doable, a lot less pressure, doesn't it? So take it slow and steady. And really, before you know it, you're going to have formed that new habit. And it's going to be much more easier to maintain in the long run because it's become part of your identity. Your brain is going to start to work with you because you're going to have given it the time that it needed to create those new neural pathways, those connectors, those processes, and allowed it time that it needed to feel safe to make those changes because our brain is just trying to keep us safe. And if you're like, "Ma, why can't I lose this weight?" Because you've starved yourself one too many times. And your brain's like, "Oh, she's doing it again." Nope, we're holding on to all of it. It's not a healthy place. We're not going there. Our brain is just trying to keep us safe. So if we can help our brain out, it will help us out as well. So creating healthy habits, a little bit at a time, continued, compounds, right, over time. And then you will have this, you'll be at another place and suddenly you'll look up and be like, wow, how did I get here? Instead of, whoa, how did I get here? This is not where I meant to be. Like you weren't paying attention. Have any of you driven somewhere and you didn't remember driving there? Was it just me? Like, have you all done that? Scarily enough, I have done that many times because I'm on autopilot. Totally didn't even realize that I was driving really. Like just my brain went somewhere else and full muscle memory took over. Thank God I've never been in a car accident, but I do that. Why? Why is it that we do that, right? So it's because, we our brain our brain is so incredibly powerful. And so it can do amazing things. We just don't give it enough credit. So I wanted to give you this mindset shift because I'm all about mindset. That's such a big part of what I do, what I teach, what the biblical body plan is all about. So I want you to write this down. Here's your mindset shift about making these changes. Get rid of all or nothing thinking. Get rid of this idea that if you can't do it all, you can't do anything at all. Okay. Remember, something is better than nothing. Small changes compounded over time give you huge results. So I want to ask you this question. I want you to take a few minutes, type this out in the notes in your notebook or in the comments if you feel comfortable doing that. What small changes could you implement into your life this week that would propel you forward towards where you want to go? I want you to write those down, take a few minutes and actually do this. Okay. Write down those small changes you could start to implement in your life this week and revisit your list often so that you can add to it when you're ready to just add that 1% more. So you might have a list of 20 things, but if you're like me, I'm a task oriented person. I like to check them off. Don't let that overwhelm you. You don't have to check them off. It's just there for a guide for you to go back to and go, okay, I'm going to add 1% more. Okay, so I started walking 10 minutes a day, right? Now I want to look at what else I could do to up my health, my physical health game, okay? Maybe I'm going to do 10 squats before I start my 10-minute walk every day. And then I'm going to up my walk to 20 minutes instead of 10 minutes after I've been doing it for a month. I don't know. Once you get, in the habit, the 1% more over time, suddenly you're going to be walking for an hour and you're gonna be like, "Wow, I can't even believe I can do this. This is awesome." So that's one way, the 1% method. And that's a huge thing to think about. It's just looking at those small changes over time. Here's another really great way to start establishing healthy habits. And this I teach in great detail in the biblical body plan as well, is the 1% method, the anchor method. And some people call it habit stacking. Okay, the anchor method of creating healthy habits is phenomenal. It has amazing benefits because, like I said before, your brain is conditioned to wire, two responses together and continue to do those things. So, the anchor method is helpful when you're trying to establish a healthy habit, such as I want to be stronger, I want to exercise more. You can say, okay, that's the end goal. Why do I want to do it? Well, because I want to be the healthiest version of myself. I don't want to have arthritis and I don't want to be in pain when I'm an older person. I want to be strong. And whatever your big reason is, okay, you have to have that. You know where you're going, you know your why. And now you're going to go, okay, what 1% better every day can I do? Well, I can do 10 squats starting. I can do that. Okay, great. Well, now when do I do those 10 squats? The anchor method is that you would go, what do I do every day already? Habitually, without thinking, ow, my thumb hurts. I should not be snapping. Just wow. What do you do every day already? Like, okay, for me, I drink coffee every single morning when I get up in the morning. I make my little guy his chocolate milk. I have a cup of coffee. That's my morning routine. So what if I anchored my 10 squats to my making coffee in the morning? While it's brewing, I could just stand in the kitchen, who cares what anybody thinks in my house, and do 10 squats while I'm waiting for it. What's another habit that you do on a regular basis, Catherine? Well, I go to the bathroom. I drink a lot of water. I have one of these cool Stanley cups that everybody's going crazy about on the internet right now. I'm like, what is the deal with these things? Seriously. I mean, they're very uncomfortable to hold. They're crazy heavy. Why? Somebody gave that to my husband as a gift. And I'm like, At first I was like, what is this big old cup? And now I'm hearing about crazy things going on the internet about people doing some nutso things to get these weird cups. But anyways, I go to the bathroom a lot. So what could I do? What could I anchor to that already in place habit? Do you see how this is working? So instead of I'm going to go to the bathroom with my phone, what if I'm going to, because I want like the habit of better mental health, for instance? Well, I can go to the bathroom and not bring my phone, but have a book nearby and read. Or I could go to the bathroom, wash my hands, and do 10 squats before I walk out. Do you understand like what I'm saying? So this could look in so many different ways that look like for whatever it needs to look like for you. So the anchor method, think about what you're already doing and then attach a healthy habit that you want to establish to the already established habits that are good, that aren't bothering your life, right? And start to do it from there. Okay. Look, like, yes, she says, I pray, Silas, he said, I pray when I sit to pee. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. So it can look any way you want. It really can. All right. So, let's move on to step number 3, and that is building habit formations versus goal setting. Because goal setting is fine, but really habit formations is where the actual transformation and the change happens. So I know, it's really helpful, like I said, to know where you want to go, but it's even more important to know who you are becoming in the process. So it's great to have your goal, but the reason consistency is such an issue is because we're only focusing on the result and not spending the time to put in place the support system, the accountability, gathering all the little pieces that we need to go that are going to help us get to the other side as a new person transformed, right? Like Romans 12:2 says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that word transformed literally means to be formed into something new. So creating new healthy habits only sticks long term if we're creating new habits that shape our identity. So if somebody were to say to me, would you like to go for a run? I'd say, no, thanks. I'm not a runner. That's an identifying statement. I didn't say I don't like to run because, hey, that's the truth. I don't. Okay. But I said, no, thanks. I don't run. Somebody says to me, would you like a Dr. Pepper? No, thanks. I don't drink soda. It's just who I am. I just don't drink soda. If that's the case, that I just don't drink soda, it's not going to be hard for me to say, no, I'm not going to go running because I'm not a runner. I'm not going to drink soda because I don't drink soda. It's an identifying statement. So you can start to think about that in your own life about what identifying statements could you start to make. Like a long time ago, I used to be a smoker. I know it's disgusting, but that's what I did. Okay. And I struggled like for years being addicted. I started smoking when I was 11. I did not have a good life, y'all. Okay. I started smoking when I was 11. And in my late 20s, I decided I was going to quit. And I had to start identifying as somebody who was a non-smoker before I actually could accomplish the feat of quitting, which is a hard thing to do. It's so hard. And I tried many times and failed, way too many times and failed, where I almost just was like, forget it. This is just who I am. Those statements of this is just who I am trips you up if they're in the negative. So don't just resolve that this is just who I am. Like, well, okay, but is that who you want to continue to be? Well, for me, no. The answer was no. I wanted to not be a smoker anymore. So I had to start identifying literally by telling myself I was a non-smoker. And so that's a whole story. I won't get into that. But it's important that when you're creating healthy habits, you're thinking about your identity. And instead of becoming so focused on the outcome, that you start to focus on the process. Okay. And so instead of being focused on the outcome, establishing the new healthy habits only happens when you start to identify as the person who does the thing. Behavior modification only goes so far. Behavior modification is something that most of us can do, and we can, couple with willpower and get something done for a short period of time, modifying our behavior for a while. But if we aren't truly transformed and we quit doing that behavior, what happens? We go right back to Doritos. We stop working out on the treadmill. We don't get back on our cool, workout equipment or go to the gym anymore because I just finished, the whole 75 hard program. And okay, now what? I don't know. Ice cream, anybody? Because we didn't become someone new in the process. We just did 75 hard program and then suddenly that's it, right? So here's what I mean. We are human beings. We are created to be. We are not human doings. God formed us. So we are created to be and to be formed. Goals are very concrete. Formations are like Play-Doh. Think about Play-Doh being formed. God said, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. That's Psalm 139:16. So we were created for becoming, and that's a process. So if we are always looking at the end result, we're going to be very discouraged when we don't get there. We need to know the end result, but not to be focused on it. So start to shift your focus from what do I need to do? Because, and that's crazy, right? Because I just told you, like, well, what habits do you need to change? Yes, you need to look at those things, but focus on who you're becoming in the process of all that doing that's going on around you. And I want to share this with you because I think it's really important to think about this way. Goals have an end in mind. Like there's a finish line. Goals have, when I get here, I've arrived. I win the game, right? Habit formations have a continued present at the center of attention. Okay. It's the process versus the outcome. One is about the end, one is about the present right now. So, yes, I want to lose 20 pounds, but what am I doing right now to become the person who easily drops 20 pounds and then keeps it off? So I'm no longer running to the end without paying attention to the process. It's really important to focus on who you're becoming, not just what you're achieving. It's very, very important. So focus on the process and not on the outcome, and know the outcome, but don't focus all your efforts there. It's more important to recognize who you're becoming in the process so that when it gets tough, you can go back and look at your why. You can go back and look where you're going and why. And then you can look at those tiny things and go, okay, I don't have to change everything at once. I don't have to give up all the foods I love at once. And let me just stop there, first of all. Stop saying that you love foods that don't love you back. If you're struggling with physical health and you want to lose weight, or maybe it's not even just about weight, it's just about being healthy. I want less inflammation in my body and, I want a strong brain. I don't want to have Alzheimer's, all this kind of stuff, you want to prevent. So, okay, maybe you just want to eat healthier because you were preventative in your wellness journey, and that's awesome. But why? Okay. Start making small changes, and then you can add in more, one little tiny percent at a time. Everybody can do 1%, right? Let me know if you're like, yeah, this sounds pretty doable. I think I can do this. And if y'all have any questions, I'm going to open up for just in just a minute for those. And I want to share some things with y'all, let you get some coaching so we can walk through your habits, what it is that you're, wanting to change, and see if I can help you start to create a plan for that. Okay. But right now, I just want to share with you about the biblical body plan for just a minute. I want to make sure that you know that this is a program that is an option for you. Okay. This is an amazing program that God gave me, a specific guide that He gave me. And I'm going to type the link over here in the chat for you. Give me a second. There we go. And there we go. You guys can go check that out. The course itself is a 6-phase course that is geared towards helping you to establish healthy habits and become the person who does the healthy thing by focusing on your limiting beliefs, looking at the root cause of those beliefs that cause the behaviors that you no longer want to do in your life. Like, what's the reason? For me, I had to look at, for instance, what's the reason why I'm so impatient and I feel like I have to get it done right now, God? He showed me the root cause of that, and it went way back to childhood, but it only took a second. I don't have to dwell on it. I don't have to like dig it all up, but He did show me. So it walks you through what it is that you're doing that you don't want to do anymore and why. It helps you to uncover that and then go through emotional wellness. And I'm a certified mental health coach through the American Association of Christian Counselors. And I love inner healing and emotional wellness. It's very important that we get our internal health right so that our external health will fall in line. Because if you're healthy on the inside, you're going to be healthy on the outside. And so we'll walk through your emotions, walk through learning how to actually feel your emotions so that you can deal with them and heal from them. So if you're an emotional eater, this program is going to completely set you free from that, coupled with, the Holy Spirit walking you through that. And I give you lots of tools and resources for you to be able to do that throughout the course. Also, I walk you through agreements, looking at the power of words. What is it that you're saying to yourself over and over again that's making you establishing healthy habits difficult? What is it? And so you're going to walk through learning how to rewire your brain using your reticular activating system. We're going to go through things like mind mapping and coming up with a plan, a very strategic plan, of action for that. And I see some questions in the chat. I'm going to answer those in just a second. And then after you have learned what agreements you've made, you're going to start to dig out those thoughts that you've been thinking that are keeping you stuck, because all action or inaction starts with our thoughts. You think it and it actually manifests, right? Like, so the Bible says, as a man thinks in his heart. First off, what do you mean think in your heart? Well, don't we think in our mind? Well, the Bible says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So that means what you believe, right? Your heart is representative of your beliefs. So when you think, your thoughts actually have some kind of outcome that comes, as an external thing, whether it's an action or an inaction, keeping you from doing something or propelling you forward to do something. And so we're going to start digging into uncovering that in phase 5. And then in phase 6, you're going to jump into establishing healthy habits in a very, very strategic and detailed way. And we're going to look at healthy habits. Like I just shared with you some of these, but we go into them in a lot more detail. But we look at healthy habits for your food, hydration, sleep, mental health habits. We look at anxiety and depression, not clinical depression, but just depression from just life happening and phones in our face and, living this high, crazy stress lifestyle, and also managing and dealing with stress. So it's a program that is all inclusive to your health inside and out. And so you're definitely going to take a look at that and see if this course is for you. And it also comes with a lot of awesome bonuses. You're going to get a ton of bonuses. All that's listed out. You can go to the website and check those out right now. Also, you're going to get a quick start guide. If you register in the next 24 hours to get the course, it's sent straight to your inbox. You'll get a login notification, and you'll be able to log in as soon as you purchase, and you'll start being able to go through those modules. And you just can listen to them in your car and then go through and download the workbook and make sure that you take a minute to do the homework, at the end of some of the trainings that I give you, because that's where the true transformation comes into place. And like I said, the coaching program itself is not open right now for registration, but the course is, and you can achieve incredible results just using the course. Okay. So I talk about some of the stories of the ladies that have been through the course as well, but you're going to get lifetime access to the Biblical Body Plan program. You will not have to go through it in a certain amount of time. It's yours for life, and it has 57 video trainings and audio trainings. So you don't have to watch the videos. You literally can pop in your headphones and go for a walk. That's about 20 hours of content. So don't freak out if it's like, whoa, that's big. It is big. It's a lot of amazing stuff, but you're going to discover inner healing in the process as well, emotional wellness, and so much more. Okay. It's a very unique program. You're going to get 6 workbooks for each phase. You'll get a workbook that you can download that goes along with the lessons. You're going to get Facebook community of women who are enrolled in the Biblical Body Plan, where you can get some support from those women. You're also going to get a copy of my book, Behind Enemy Lies, and the Healing and Truth Journal. Those are going to be a downloadable PDF, so you'll have access to those. You're going to get health affirmations. You're going to get stuff for habit tracking and so many more things. You're also going to get 6 months of healthy meal plans. If that's something you want to utilize, you'll have 6 months of healthy meal plans with a grocery guide and meal prep. So the entire course is $397 if you pay in full, or there's payment plans for $147. So you go check that link out. Let me know if you have any questions. That is it, ladies. That's how you establish healthy habits. You just start small. You got to have your reason why. You got to have a big, an end in mind, a finish line, a reason why, and then start coming up with your plan where it's not all or nothing. Okay. And then start to look at those mindset shifts and building habit formations that you can identify with. And part of the Biblical Body Plan that is so unique and awesome is that it helps you to start identifying, like I said earlier, like, no, I don't run. No, I don't drink soda. And I teach you how to start identifying as somebody who does the healthy habit, or somebody who is healthy, sorry, versus somebody who just does the healthy habit. Quick question. iPhone, I don't know your name. I'm sorry. It only shows me iPhone. She says, is this course self-paced, and how much does it cost? So it is self-paced. It's go at your own pace. You can complete it in 3 months. If you listen to a couple trainings a week, you can complete it in 3 months, and you could have amazing results in your health journey inside and out in 3 months, but some people take longer. Just depends on, how it works. So creating a habit of doing, the work I set you up to do in phase 1 so that you'll learn how to create the habit of actually putting the course into your life, to listen to. And if you already listen to podcasts, if you're already listening to YouTube videos, I listen to YouTube videos like podcasts, so you can just press play and listen and as I'm driving. So you can look at ways. I take walks. So that would be a way for you to start listening to the coursework. You don't have to like actually sit down, be still with a pen and paper, don't move and listen to the whole training. It's like 15 minutes long, 15 or 20 minutes each session or less, somewhere of 7 minutes. But you can just go through it at your own pace and in your own time. And again, the cost is one time $397, or there is a payment plan available if you go to biblicalbodyplan.com/course. Yeah, Christy, I'm so glad. I can't wait for you to start either, sister. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. I know you've been watching and hanging out and waiting to jump on board. And I actually just spent the whole month of December making the course available as a standalone without the coaching program for everybody who was like, this is where I want to be able to get in. I want to get this in everybody's hands that possibly can say that knows it's for them, that wants to do it, because it is gonna change your life. It's changed so many people's lives. I had one lady join in January, for instance, of last year. I never met her. She just joined with the coaching. And she didn't come to any of the coaching calls that I have available in the student community. And she reached out to me 3 months later and she's like, Catherine, I've lost 23 pounds. I'm like, shut the front door. What are you doing? And she's like, your course. And I was like, well, that's awesome. I just hadn't seen you. I didn't know what's going on. And so then I talked with her and I was like, well, what are you doing? And she said, really, I'm not doing anything different. It's just me and the Lord. I'm starting to implement some of these mindset shifts that I didn't realize were really hindering my success. And all of a sudden, remember, like we talked about, all of a sudden, I just had lost 23 pounds. And now where she is now, that was just in 3 months from March of 2023. Now she just reported to me in November, hey, I was a size 18 when I started. I'm in a size 8. It's like, way to go. But beyond the physical weight loss, she's experienced a lot of inner healing and emotional wellness and all of that stuff as well. So that's really why I do what I do. So yes, I've written a book, and the book is very important to talk about those things, but it doesn't give you so many practical strategies to put into place for your health and wellness as the Biblical Body Plan does. So I made that available to you. If you want also the first 2 videos of the course for free, if you're like, hey, I just want to watch a little introduction video about what it's about and maybe jump into the first video of the course itself, just type in the comments me and I will send you a link to that. But otherwise, just go to biblicalbodyplan.com/course, jump in and just say yes. Like, I'm going to do this. I want change in my life. So I'm going to change something in my life. All right. Anybody else have questions? Okay, Silas, I see you, sister. Is that your name, Silas? Am I saying that right?
Actually, this I shouldn't be on this Zoom right now. My name is Michelle. Sorry.
Hi, Michelle. Oh
I
no.
just came in. I just came in under this Zoom and I didn't realize I was on the wrong one.
Oh, that's what I thought. I don't think that's probably, I thought that too. I was like, I don't think that's probably her name. Because this stuff happens all the time. I just typed the link in the chat for you to go get those videos for free. Okay. Um, so you can go to the chat and look there. I love that. Melissa, she said shift is her word this year, to go from autopilot to the shift of mindset and movement in my life. That's good. Yeah, that's really good. I love that. Okay, I'm going to archive this masterclass. It's going to be in the guides section of the Facebook group. So you can go back and listen, take more notes, start to implement those things that I gave you, those strategies that I gave you. And if nobody needs any help, personalized help, I'm just going to go ahead and end our call today and hope that you implement these and go check out the Biblical Body Plan course for yourself. So I hope you have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.